Hey, this is Gavin, president of Baker Labs, and we are here today to talk about healthcare and marketing and just the challenges we have in front of us. And so I'm excited today to have Dr. Wes Mullins, who owns a dental practice called My Family Dentistry. And I'm super excited about Wes because he, in addition to being a friend, he does a couple things really well. He's super passionate about dentistry, and he'll probably geek out a little bit at some point about some teeth or something here. But beyond that, he really loves the business side of his practice, and really thinks deeply and strongly about that, both in terms of team culture as well as marketing and just what do they do and how do they do it and why do they do it. And so even beyond that, those passions kind of collide beyond just kind of being with patients and their teeth. But he is also a host of a podcast, or co-host of a podcast called The Dental Guys, which is listened to across the nation by hundreds and thousands of dentists who are just trying to figure out how to do the right thing in their practice. And so along with that, so Wes, thanks for being here and having some time to just kind of talk to us about what's going on in your business and being able to share some insights for other folks.
Well, thanks for having me, Gavin. I really appreciate that. That was a nice introduction, and I'm looking forward to talking to you today a little bit about what's been going on.
For sure. And so crazy times, right? But I think generally we all know we're going to get through it. But what we want to talk about in the midst of this is how do we have a marketing mindset? And that's the theme of these videos is, marketing is not going away. It's probably changing a bit. And so I think for your practice, I mean, how have you, just jump in it, how have you been affected by the COVID-19 guidelines? And what are you doing about it?
It's an interesting time because I don't think I've ever been off work this long, Gavin. As a dentist, you typically are planning 6 months to a year in advance, all of your vacation time, all of your time off. The most that I ever take off is between Christmas and New Year's, maybe a couple weeks there. But this for us is going to probably extend probably for 8 weeks. And so when you tell patients and you look at your book of business going forward, I'm not going to see anyone for 8 weeks unless you have a true dental emergency. That's a pretty big deal because there's no touches, right? We're in a personal space, a personal environment where we're touching people and we're working with people intimately. We're always in communication with people. And so to shut that off, like I'm serious, like one day we're working and the next day we're not. That's how this went down.
Yeah.
It was a big deal. It was a big deal, Gavin. So
what are you doing about that? I mean, so like you said, you're normally kind of, you're literally in their face, right? Talking to them. And I mean, what are you doing? Right. What are you doing now?
Well, the first thing we said is we're not going to stop communication. So the first thing we did is we worked with our, our marketing experts because they're kind of the people that are doing most of our external and internal marketing advice. And, those things, we started having conversations immediately about that. And so we said, we want to be upfront and like out there immediately. So we re-released, we have the ability to email all of our current clients and anybody that's on that list that we were shutting the office. We described why we were doing that. And we created a sense of immediacy that, hey, we're on this, we're evaluating this. This is what we need to do to help stop the spread of this particular situation. And we hit all of our social media outlets with that via email and social media. So communication is key in anything like this because we're always communicating with our patients, whether it be by phone, text, email, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all of the above. That's what we've continued to do. Okay. And so what we've continued to do is communicate weekly emails, right? Saying, hey, we're still here. If you need us for any particular reason, let us know, and we can see if we can help you. For instance, while we were sitting here talking, I have someone that is working behind the scenes. She's receiving information from patients, and she sent me a message saying, hey, we've got a patient. that needs help. How do you want me to handle that? So we want to go ahead and reach out to those people and make sure that they're helping. If we just shut the doors and we did no communication, the attrition would be ridiculous. Like, we would lose a lot of patients to whatever, right? Either they're going to go somewhere in the end of all this, I hope. But we want them to come back to us, and we want to be seen as a leader. And if we're going to be seen as a leader, then we need to be upfront from the very beginning about what's going on. And that's kind of how we've continued to do that. So then we kind of added something, right? I came home and I told my wife, I said, we're going to go live every night until this is over. And that's kind of an interesting thing, because I've never really done Facebook Live from my business standpoint. So from a pure My Family Dentistry standpoint, I've never really been consistent like live vlogger per se. And this isn't really a vlog. And we're not talking a lot about dentistry, but we're not talking about, you know, this virus, right? We're mainly talking about life, what means the most to us, which is our faith, our family, and our friends. We're talking a little bit about, like, we might pepper in a little bit of, dental knowledge here and there. And in that live stream, I'm trying to let people know that I am still available, right? I am here. I'm a normal person just like you. I put on my shirt and put on my pants, even though I'm a doctor, right? I'm still going through this with you. And we've received nothing but just great comments. Man, you guys are awesome. Like, this is great. And what that's doing is that creates a top of mind scenario with our patients. Basically, they're going to remember that My Family Dentistry, Dr. Wes Mullins, went live every night until he went back to work, and whenever that is. And that's great, because that's spreading, one, that I'm available to help maybe even a friend that they have that's not a patient. But not only that, is that when we go back to work after this hiatus, it's another touch, right? It's another, like, okay, he's a leader. He's out in front of this. He seems to know, I hope, what's going on. And we're going to give them a call and get back into them. We want to, and again, my whole idea is, with any patient or client, is to create loyalty. And to create loyalty, it takes a lot of work, right? And it's sweat equity as an owner. And so, there's a lot of sweat equity involved in, like, going live every night. I mean, there is some technology involved in that, so you have to learn some things, but for the most part, it's some work, right? And so, but what else am I going to do? Right, Gab? That's a long answer.
Oh, that's okay. Well, that's great. Well, I think two things that sparked when you were saying that is, one, I love that you're basically taking the time to market your bedside manner to some degree, right? I mean, so this idea of, hey, here's who I am as a person, right? Because we do know from research that shows that people don't leave practices because of necessarily poor treatments, or their symptoms weren't relieved, right? They leave because they're treated poorly.
Yes.
Whether that's by billing, whether that's by they thought someone was rude to them, whatever that would be. Just like people don't leave companies, they leave bad managers, right? I mean, same kind of a scenario, right? They're leaving, and it's not normally the doctor, right? It's normally something around that scenario. And so I think what you're doing is you're taking a time to do that, which people really appreciate, right? You're kind of, like you said, you're a doctor, but you're also an authentic human being who has, a family and has hobbies and has all these other things that are relatable. The other thing that I love you're doing, and I just thought this as you were talking, is, relationships. Richard, you're talking about, hey, these relationships with patients are really important to you, right? You want them to have loyalty, but you also, I mean, they tell you their hopes, their fears, their dreams, their, what my kids are doing, what my grandparents, I mean, they're telling you everything while they're there. And when you lose 8 weeks of that, it's kind of like any relationship. It's a little awkward to go back into it, right? You run into somebody you haven't seen in a while. Sometimes you're immediately back to where you were, but a lot of times you're kind of like, oh, good to see you again. And so what you're doing with this communication is you're planting seeds that can anchor those relationships. So they come back in and they can say, hey, I tried that recipe you made, right? Or like they can anchor the conversation back because you won't have that. You don't know what they're doing necessarily, but they'll
Right.
have known what you were doing for the ones that are chiming in and out. So I love that from that perspective and really kind of tying those in. That's awesome. That's really great. So talking about patients, I mean, what's the feedback, been? Other than the fact you're open, hey, that's great. Thanks for being here. Are you getting other kinds of feedback about either whether about the community or about medicine in general, or just general, hey, this is awesome. Thanks for being here.
Yeah. So feedback has been more of, fun, right? Thank you for a break in the day. There's so much news that is not fun to listen to, but it's great to see positivity, right? Um, just the other night, we had one of my best friends on, you know him as well as I do. And, we talked about going out to dinner with our kids for the very first time and how you've create such memories and bonds with one another. And it's, I think that, the feedback has been just, man, this is really great. Like I talked to somebody on the phone and they've never even commented on like the posts, and they said, we play games every night during this time. They've got college kids and their kids are home and doing homeschooling, and in the evening they've been playing games. And they say one of the things that we look forward to is putting on your live stream. And I mean, like, I don't know. I mean, like, we're really not talking about anything other than just life and whatever we've done maybe for the day. It's not necessarily a day cap or a recap or anything so much like that. But I'm like, sometimes we'll bring our dog on, or our, we'll talk about, like we said, what we're going to do when we get together again. We're going to have a low country boil or grill pizza or something like that. Or, my wife pressure washed the driveway, and she's a dental hygienist. So we talked a little bit about that last night and how she pressure washes teeth, but this is really kind of an outlet for her because she's still cleaning something. Right. And so for the most part, it's been like, and it's funny because, you do call people and they're like, man, like, thank you for that. That really helped break up my day and it brings a little joy to my life. And I'm not really an entertainer, I guess. I mean, I guess that I'm just, trying again. Like you said, I think the best thing it is that there's not going to be a sense of awkwardness, right? Because if you don't talk to somebody for 8 weeks, they're probably going to, when you call them up the next time, they may not answer, immediately. And now what I feel like I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create, a relationship, like a long distance relationship, right? I mean, we all know how hard that is. And that's what everybody's trying to do. Everyone is creating long distance relationships. And that's probably, if you can survive a long distance relationship, then you can survive, right? For the most part. So
now that's a great analogy of how we all understand of a long distance relationship. So I think from that relationship perspective, I mean, what do you hope to see your relationships with your patients grow? I mean, during this time, and how do you think about that? I mean, what do you hope they turn into in the future
well,
through the
I mean,
investment?
I'll be honest with you, we are a business, right? So I mean, the whole idea behind this is for business to resume, right? And for people to jump right back into what they were doing. I mean, that's the short and sweet answer. I mean, yes, we are creating relationships, but the goal here is to have a business that makes money, right? I mean, you have to make money. You can't give dentistry away, even though I would love to give it away. You have to have a situation where you go back to work. I mean, imagine being off work for 8 weeks, not paying your employees, laying them off, and then you're going to turn right around and ramp back up. We want people to come back because we have a business, and there's a lot of information going around about what that takes. Well, I'm just creating one facet of that, which is I'm creating the relationship so that they will come back and eventually, be able to help pay for my life, right? I mean, that's what a business is about, right? Is about paying for what you do, put your kids in school, whatever that is, and pay for your car payment, pay for your house payment. I mean, we have to pay for those things, and so hopefully by doing this, we'll have a quicker uptick in our business versus if we didn't do it. I'm anxious to see what happens from it.
Yeah. Well, I think you talked at the very beginning about this is about building awareness. And so I think, staying top of mind, just even with your current customer base, right? Not even talking about how do we expand into a different patient segment, but just, okay, with our current patients, how do we accelerate their return? And I think staying top of mind, again, not about those dental topics, because those aren't as, no matter what, they're just not as compelling as, family stories or things that are just more relatable, right? And some people don't like the dentist, and some people have fear about the dentist, and those are all kinds of different pieces. And so I think you're building into those. When it comes to your role as a patient, a healthcare provider, how do you think this is changing? This experience is changing you.
Well, I'm not a germaphobe. This will change dentistry. How it'll change, I don't know yet. How is it changing me? I think it's more of the same, right? Because I'm a next level kind of a guy, right? So what we've done in my office is when this all happened, we took 2 days and we basically did a bunch of system refinement, and we still have some of that going on behind the scenes. This was an opportunity for us to refine systems. I think because of this, we're going to be more refined, right? I mean, in every facet, whether it's sterilization techniques, whether it's how we clean and wipe down instruments, it's going to be something that's more refined in every way. So I just don't know. Personally, I won't really change how I'm practicing because I think we've always tried to practice next level dentistry. So I don't really, and it's hard to answer a question like, I don't know yet, right? There's a lot of things that are unknown at this point. We've not even received like mandates of what we're going to do, And so if, we need more equipment or something like that, I mean, we're obviously going to get those things, but I'm always been a researcher, and I'm going to just take advantage of the resources that I have and try to just make it the best experience it possibly can be.
Yeah. Do you, along that line, I mean, do you think, just from your experience, if you were going to talk to a different type of practitioner, right? So say it's not a dentist. I mean, do you think others can rethink how they connect with their patients, or kind of caveat to that? I mean, even beyond dentistry, I mean, do you think, just as a macro kind of, because you're, like you said, you're next level thinker, you often think beyond just the medical world. I mean, do you think this is going to change how any service provider to some degree connects with their base of customers? So I guess question one's about, what about just another practitioner? Yeah, how will that change for them?
Yeah. So for instance, I've talked to several people over the last probably 2-3 weeks and interviewed some people that have went through the HIV situation back in the 80s. And they're actually starting to draw some similarities to what happened then and what happens now. Obviously, the HIV pandemic hit. Dentistry went through a change during that time. I mean, I had professors that, they didn't use gloves. I mean, think about that. There were no gloves like in the 70s and early 80s because there were no bloodborne pathogens, right? Blood was sterile, right? And so there was no disinfection protocols. They were just a lot different then. So you had a complete mindset change after that in the public. And initially, there was this downturn, but then there was this upturn. So I think if I was giving some advice to practitioners, I would say expect the unexpected, right? And go ahead and start preparing for that unexpected and getting ahead of it, right? And if you don't get ahead of it, then like we could experience a downturn, right? We talked about that before the show. So how do you just continue in the same? Well, you have to look at what past has happened in the HIV pandemic. There was a little dip, right? Because the public perception is that I'm going to get HIV, right? When I go over here, because there were cases that happened, right? But yet there was never once, from what I remember, a confirmed transmission in a dental office of HIV to a patient. Right? Now, this is different than HIV. So in some ways, it's actually more contagious, right? And harder to control. So I would say get ready for the unexpected, prepare your team, have conversations with your team, surround yourself with people that are better than you. What I would do is I would get a group of advisors talking into my ear, and I would start making decisions now and have some what if scenarios.
That's good. In terms of what you've been doing to adapt, in terms of, okay, great, we're refining our procedures, in terms of the marketing side of it, okay, great, we're communicating, we're doing these videos, we're doing these different things to kind of build trust. I mean, do you think, I'm not asking you to predict the future, I mean, but do you think there's a role for that when things return to normal, right? I mean, do you think there's a role for to adapt, to that the world's different and we need to be different?
Yeah. So what you're saying is that should we change, right, to adapt? And I think, hey, dentistry is different today than it was when I started 15 years ago in some respects. People are more insurance based today in my community. In some areas, like urban areas, I'm more in a city, a small, mid-sized city. And it's obviously different here than it is in like an urban town or a rural area. So I think, things could change and we could see the need to change our business model, right? And I'm up for that. Now, what you can't compromise on, Gavin, is your core attributes of your practice. Like you have to sleep at night, in my opinion, right? So you have to kind of sleep, but you also have to kind of figure out, is that going to work in today's society, in my location and where I'm at? And so I think you have to look, is there going to need to be some kind of modification to the mission statement, right? Like, does that change? Because in my office, we've defined, vision, mission, and brand identity, and it's on the wall, right? Does that change? It might, right? It might. Now, your vision could change because the vision always should be changing, but maybe your brand identity stays the same, but your vision might change, which is, what you're doing inside of your team, right? That could change. And I think you got to be open to that.
Yeah. Well, what I'm wondering too, Wes, is just, certainly the rise of social media, which is, the rise is probably not rising anymore. I mean, it's just here. But I think one of the, the weird realities of social media is it gives people a view into what they think someone else's world is, right? Now, it's manufactured in a lot of cases, right? There's all kinds of research that talks about, don't compare your worst day to someone's best. And often Instagram is just full of bests, right? Here's me on the edge of this canyon. Here's me, winning this award. Here's me doing all these things that are great. But I think what the reality of some of that is that, people feel like they know, a Kim Kardashian because of what she posts on Instagram, right? Or her team of people post on Instagram, most likely. But, they feel like they know celebrities. And so I wonder if, and just wonder with me here, I mean, I wonder if there's a world here where the relatability of a practitioner, of a dentist, whatever kind of doctor you are, right, is going to rise. to break down some of that barrier that's there sometimes, because of things like this, right? Because in your case, so you've been
Yeah.
posting for a couple weeks, they now know more about you. I wonder if that's, I mean, it's not quite social, but I wonder if there's going to be a barrier drop there, but also kind of a growth or an explosion of dentists and other types of doctors and business leaders being more vulnerable about, hey, this is my reality. Here's my house. Here's what my kids eat for breakfast. I mean, like, just this aspect of kind of breaking that down. Whether that's good, bad, or different, I don't know. But I mean, do you feel like that there's just an element there that people are going to be more comfortable with kind of getting on video and talking, and so that might leading more to that following up on social? Or what do you think?
I mean, I wonder because, you look at Zoom conference calling, right? Well, I've used Zoom for a couple of years now, and before that Skype, and still use both platforms actively. And oh man, wish you had stock in Zoom right now, right? I mean, we're all video conferencing. We're all talking to our friends. I mean, my daughter just kind of snuck in behind me because she's doing some Zoom and she needed my laptop to kind of get things going. And because there's a social interaction, right, that will continue. Now, some of that will kind of drop down because there will be the need to be with people. I think one, we're going to see a couple things happen. I'm wondering, okay. One, there is no substitute for face-to-face interaction. Proven, hands down. You've got to have it. Like, webinars are great. I've got a webinar running right here that I'm going to jump into after this, right? We've talked to, this is some science, right? Behind what I'm saying is we've talked to an instructional design specialist at ETSU, and Stephanie Tweed is her name. And this is her main objective, right? Is to study how people learn, okay, and how they interact. And there's a big push to online learning right now, right? And seeing people from a distance through a camera. Well, that works to a certain point. And what she's shown in research, and it's well documented, that only works for a small amount of information to be disseminated, basically like core concepts, but there is no substitute for follow-up with face-to-face collaboration. Okay, so what that means is that we can disseminate some information out. So I think as healthcare providers, right, or as business owners, I think you start to break the barrier down by disseminating some information. Like, you know as well as I know, Gavin, that one of the top pages that are viewed on my website is what? About the team. Well, because that's where people want to go to see who you are, right? So imagine like putting this in video form and showing a little bit more, breaking down that before you get to see me face to face barrier. I've had so many people come to my practice over the years and say, man, I feel like I know you already. And I'm like, how's that? Well, because I checked out your website. It's a great website. It tells a lot about you and your family, and it speaks to what the quality of business you're trying to promote here. And we chose you because of your website. Well, maybe they'll choose me because I've broke the barrier down even more, right? So I've kind of just pulled back the curtain just a little bit. So there's some information I think we can disseminate through this type of medium, but there's no substitute for face-to-face. Why are suicides on the rise? Now, I don't want to be doom and gloom, but that's the case, right? Because we do need interaction. And so sometimes you do have to shut down the media, and you do have to do that. But I think right now there's such an uptick that we'll see that kind of draw back down, but there will be a new normal, Gavin. I really feel like that I wonder how much of this will last, right? I mean, I told my wife, I was like, are we going to continue to do this afterwards? You'll get back into the busyness of life and you'll kind of probably fall back into the same ways, but there probably is going to be some good outcome from this, and which is we will learn how to communicate better through this type of medium, which, but then I also start quoting science. There's no substitute for face-to-face collaboration. There's just no substitute. We like to be with people. It's human nature.
Well, and I think, you know this, I'm a big fan of Michael Hyatt, and he I went to a webinar he produced last week, and one of the things he says when any kind of crisis or challenge is to ask the question, what does this make possible? And we've been trying to ask that for ourselves and for our clients, even for our family, right? What does this make possible, right? So, okay, great, this stuff is all happening, but what does it make possible? And so,
Mm.
like, I think even in my family, like my daughter's I have a 5-year-old, and she, the other day was like, can we Zoom, grandma and grandpa, right? She didn't know what the word Zoom was 3 weeks ago, right? But she now does. And to her, it's pretty, like, we used to FaceTime and do those kinds of things. But like, it's pretty normal. Does she love doing it? For, 3 minutes or so, but she still gets it. And so I wonder, if there's just from the aspect, I think, well, the world's going to be different because our
Yeah.
expectations of all that's going to be different. So one last question here. I mean, if you had one tip, for others kind of to avoid something you kind of ran into, unexpected challenge. I mean, what would you, and this could be life, team, business, whatever. I mean, what's that one tip you would give?
There's so many things that we start to prepare for, right? In our business, we start to prepare for, you know, next week or the next day. And I'm a very scheduled oriented person, right? And one thing that I would say that has happened because of this, that we looked back on and I'm like, man, I wish I would have like set that up a little bit better, you know? Um, there were certain things that weren't getting done. Okay. And you didn't know until there was downtime. Like, you know what I'm saying is like, you're moving so fast in business from day to day. Like it just is. And, it's like the Ferris Bueller statement is so true, right? If you don't stop and look around a little bit, life will just blow right by you, right? It's not the exact quote, but it's so true, right? And so what happened in my business is we stopped all, like, hit a brick wall. And then we had time to look around and I was like, man, this is so frustrating. How did this happen? And what it was is that we were going so fast that we had an opportunity. So here's what I would do now is that I would build in more downtime, right? Where you could slow down, right? And look around and actually see what you're missing, right? Because it's what I missed that would really kind of show up in little bits through the day to day that, man, there's the reason why that wasn't working, right? There's the variable, like, oh my, stupid. Why haven't we noticed that before? Well, why we haven't noticed it before is because we were going so fast and we were just in this certain routine where it's just like, whoo, 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 like a highway, but just slow down, take some time, downtime. We've called it over the years organizational time, right? So I would build in more organizational time into my schedule, Gavin.
Oh man, that's a great tip. That's a great, because I think there's a lot of richness in that because we're always so busy. And I think, your business, like my business, like probably most businesses, part of the economy that's just, supernova, just breaking records right and left. The
Right.
things we're worried about are not the little things. They're just, how can we get more people? How can we extend capacity? How can we keep our quality the same?
Right.
And we've had the same scenario, right? Asking that question. Okay, great. We're a little bit slower now. What does this make possible? And on our end, it's been things like, it makes things like this possible. Hey, let's come up with a video series where we can interview healthcare leaders, and we can prioritize it. And it's, let's get a list of people and let's outreach to them. Let's come up with some agendas and let's sit down and talk to them. And it makes,
there's going to be
in
a
our
lot of
case,
good come out of this, man. There's going to be a lot of good. There's going to be definitely some bad things that happen. And, those are the terrible things. But I'm telling you right now, there's going to be some major things that come out of this for the better. And that's what treasures in a time of darkness, right? I mean, that's the message here. And, that's where I think that faith is really important. I think that family and friends really come together at this time, and you can encourage one another and you can be open be vulnerable, right? To looking at yourself and having third parties look in and give you some really tough advice. Surround yourself with people that are going to tell you what you don't want to hear, right?
Mm.
And more often than not, I think that you're going to find that that's going to be just, man, gold. That's going to be like just a treasure right there that you're going to be able to pick out and say, wow. But man, I'd say we just need to slow down sometimes. You know, we came off of this January and February, one of the top months we've ever had in our business. And then all of a sudden, boom, just like that. And we're like, what? Right. And we slowed down enough, and a couple of days went by and I was like, man. And even my wife, she pulled me aside and she said, you've been going so fast for so long. The first week that I had down, I did so much podcasting with my other podcast. And she says, you just jumped right back into the same thing. And she was exactly right, is that you have to basically throttle this life, throttle life. I mean, that's the key. So throttle it, right? And it's not worth an extra couple percent, right? It's just not worth it.
Yeah.
It's not worth it.
That's really great. So, well, that's a great line to go out on. I think, as we have had these conversations, we're going to have more. We're going to have more of these folks come on like Wes, who are leaders in their industry, who are doing creative and thoughtful things with their marketing. And I think it is hard. I mean, it's hard. This is a challenge we have with that we talk about with our clients, which is just in our team meeting this morning, we talked about how do you market when the world is kind of mourning, and not kind of, they are mourning. And so how do you do that well? How do you do that tactfully? Some cases it's like what Wes is doing. It's a morphing and adapting. It's moving from kind of a direct response into a more of a general awareness. And so, but we're going to talk to some more folks like Wes who have adapted and who are doing things differently and can help you with your marketing with that. So so if you want to go find Wes, what's the best place to find you? Your website? I mean, where do they go?
So we're on all the above, right? Facebook is probably our top site there. You can head over to My Family Dentistry there on Facebook. We're starting to work on our Instagram feed there, My Family Dentistry on Instagram. And then you can just check us out on our website, myfamilydentistry.com. We have been blogging probably, I don't know, Gavin, we've been blogging probably longer than any body in the Tennessee Valley for some time, just about. And so we've got an amazing website there with tons of information. But if you want to just reach out to me personally, the best way to get a hold of me is smile@myfamilydentistry.com, and we'll respond to any questions you might have there.
Yeah. And then what's the Dental Guys podcast? I mean, what's the best way to find that?
So the Dental Guys is dentalguys.net on the web, but you can catch us on Apple Podcast, the Dental Guys, and then also we're on YouTube at the Dental Guys, and we're also on Facebook at the Dental Guys, and we're also on Instagram, the Dental Guys, and Twitter as well. So share, subscribe, all those things, right?
Yeah. And just full caveat, I mean, if you're not a dentist or in the dental industry, the Dental Guys will be eye-opening if you want to learn about procedures and tools and systems and whatnot. It's very dental focused. So but I think if you want to hear somebody talk about that, it's a really fascinating look into.
Yeah, we've had some good stuff on there lately revolving the crisis. We've had some experts come on the show. Of course, we talk about dentistry a lot, clinical dentistry. And then too, if you want to see an example of what we're doing on the My Family Dentistry business side, you can just head over to My Family Dentistry and check out the past videos that we've been posting. I'm always pinning the most recent video to the top of the page there.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, it's at the top. So anyway, if you guys have questions for me, you can reach me at gavin@bakerlabs.co. I'm happy to answer, and that's .co. I'm happy to answer other questions, other topics, even potential guests that we could have on. So I think in general, the world is kind of crazy right now, but this is a good time to, like Wes said, refine and really strategize about building some content, building some planning, and understanding that we don't know what the world's going to look like in 6 months, but we know it's still going to be here. And so our businesses are going to be open. They will thrive. And making some choices today will help with that. So thanks for your time. I'm looking forward to seeing you again. Thanks.